Hi, Mom, it's me. You and Peter are hopefully arrived in Sydney right now. Um, and I figured I'd pick up the book and read another chapter so that you'll have it on hand for when you get home. Okay? All right. This is chapter 36, Founding Saint Joseph's. And Saint Teresa of Avila is the book of my life. After leaving Toledo, my spirits lifted and my journey back to Avila was pleasant. I was determined to accept God's will in whatever forms it manifested. The same night I reached the city, the documents authorizing the new foundation arrived from Rome. What a coincidence! I was amazed by the timing. So was everyone else involved in this project, for they knew how the Lord had made me return very quickly, and now it was clear why. I was needed here. The bishop was waiting for me, along with the saintly Pedro de Alcantara, and a gentleman with whom the holy friar was staying, who was also a great friend to God. This gentleman regularly gave protection and support to God's servants. The two men convinced the bishop to sanction the new monastery. This was not easy, since the poverty issue was not such an unpopular one. This was not easy since the poverty issue was such an unpopular one. But anyone who was determined to serve God was dear to this bishop's heart, and we soon won his support. It was really Father Pedro who made everything happen. The elderly holy friar believed so strongly in this foundation that he went around gently urging all the right people to help us. If it hadn't been for the extraordinary coincidence of my arriving on that very night, I don't think the monastery ever would have been founded. As it turned out, Father Pedro was not going to be with us much longer. He was very sick at that time, and God brought him to himself 8 days later. It seems that His Majesty purposely preserved Father Pedro until this business was taken care of. He had already been dying for almost 2 years. We did everything under a veil of secrecy. Otherwise, I don't think we could have pulled it off. So many people were against our project, which became increasingly evident later. Around this time, the Lord ordained that my brother-in-law, Juan, who was in Avila to finish negotiations for the house they had purchased for our new monastery, became ill. Since my sister Juana was not there, it fell on me to take care of him. With this excuse, I was able to leave the Incarnation and attend to the business of the foundation without anyone suspecting anything. Well, that's not exactly right. Some people were accusing me of hatching a plot, but my superiors did not listen to them. The amazing thing is that my brother-in-law's illness only lasted as long as it took to complete our business with the new foundation. As soon as I needed to be free of my duties as caregiver, Juan got better and moved back to Alba. This also freed up the house he had procured for us. Juan himself was amazed by how the Lord brought all this about. I had a lot of trouble at different times from different people who opposed the foundation of this new monastery. I also had trouble with my sick brother-in-law. Then there were the workmen. There was so much to do to convert the house into a convent, and it all needed to be done quickly. Plus, my companion, Dona Guiomar, was away at Toro. That was intentional, though. It seemed to us that we would have more luck concealing her activities if she was not there. For many reasons, I saw that everything needed to be taken care of in a hurry. One reason was that with every passing hour I was away from the Incarnation, I was afraid they were going to demand that I return. There were so many challenges happening at the same time that I couldn't help but wonder if this was the cross to which the Lord had referred. But it all seemed like a light burden compared to the heavy one He had led me to expect. It was August 24th, St. Bartholomew's Day. Everything was ready. The Blessed Sacrament was in place. The first group of sisters received the habit: Antonia del Espíritu Santo, Maria de la Cruz, Ursula de los Santos, and Maria de San Jose. Thus, with all due authority and power, this monastery of our most glorious Father, St. Joseph, was founded in 1562. I was present for the receiving of the sacred robes, along with 2 other sisters from the Incarnation. Remember, my brother-in-law had bought the house we converted into the monastery so that we could keep our project a secret while we were fixing it up, so I had permission to be there. Plus, I had consulted with so many learned men along the way that I was confident I had not compromised my vow of obedience one iota. The men who supported me saw many reasons why this foundation would be beneficial to the whole Carmelite order. They told me to proceed with the plan, although I did everything in secret so that my superiors would not find out. If they had discovered a single real imperfection in anything I was doing, I would have willingly given up founding 1,000 monasteries, let alone one. This is beyond question. Even though I was dying to radically withdraw from everything and live simply, focusing exclusively on prayer, what I wanted most was to be of service to God. If I had found out that I could have served Him better by not living in strict enclosure, I would have abandoned the entire project with complete peace and calm, as I had done before. Pardon me. Well, it was like heaven for me to see the most holy sacrament reserved in our new monastery, and 4 poor orphans, who happened to be 4 great servants of God, come together to support each other in following the way of perfection. This is what I had always envisioned, that the people who would join this community would live by their example of prayer and integrity. They would be the foundation on which we could build to attain our goal. All I cared about was that we would work together to achieve what I knew in my heart would be of service to the Lord and would honor the Blessed Mother. It also made me happy to have followed the directions of my beloved and dedicated a new church to our glorious Father, St. Joseph. Not that I ever thought I really had anything to do with it. Everything was the work of God. What small part I played, I performed so imperfectly that I found far more cause to blame myself than to congratulate myself. Still, it gave me great pleasure to see that He would use someone as flawed as I am to be an instrument of His wondrous work. My joy was so intense that it transported me beyond myself and put me into a state of profound prayer. But then, around 3 hours later, the spirit of evil paid me a little visit and instigated a spiritual battle within me. "Maybe what you have done is wrong," he said. "Maybe you actually did violate your vow of obedience to make a foundation without your provincial's consent." He hit a nerve here. I was concerned that the provincial might be angry that I hadn't told him what I was doing ahead of time, and that I had arranged things so that the bishop would be in charge of us. On the other hand, he was the one who had refused to sanction it, but I had never changed my plans. Why should he care that we went ahead without him? "Maybe the sisters who live in this house will be unhappy with such rigorous austerity," the spirit of evil went on. "What if they don't get enough to eat? Isn't this venture simply foolish? What business is it of yours anyway? You already have a convent to live in, and a perfectly good one." All the commands the Lord had given me, all the good advice I had solicited and received, all the unceasing prayers of the past 2 years vanished from my memory as if they had never happened. I could only remember my own decisions. My faith and all my other virtues were paralyzed. I had no strength to reactivate my useless virtues or defend myself against these unrelenting blows. "How could you even think about shutting yourself up in a strictly enclosed monastery when you have so many health problems?" the spirit of evil demanded. "How could you leave such a pleasant and spacious monastery when you have been so content to live where you will have to endure such penance? And what about all your friends at the Incarnation? What if you don't like your new companions? And if you have taken on so many obligations, it's a setup for despair." Maybe the spirit of evil was trying to steal my inner peace and quiet so that I wouldn't be able to concentrate on prayer and would then lose my soul. He mixed up all these thoughts together in my mind so that I was powerless to think of anything. I cannot possibly exaggerate the state of confusion. It plunged my soul into deep darkness. Finding myself in this wretched condition, I made my way to the Blessed Sacrament. I was incapable of praying, so I just sat there in my pain. I felt like a person must feel in a death agony, and there was no one I could speak to about it because I had not yet been assigned a spiritual director. Oh, God help me, what a hard life this is. There is not a single joy that lasts and nothing that does not change. Only a short time ago it seemed to me I would not trade my happiness with anyone on earth. Now the very reason for this happiness so thoroughly tormented me that I didn't know what to do with myself. Oh, if only we would consciously observe the events of our lives, we would see what little cause they really give us for either happiness or unhappiness. I truly think this was one of the most difficult episodes of my life. It was as if my soul were having a premonition of everything I was going to have to endure. Still, none of the trials to come would prove to be as severe as this night of suffering would have been if it had continued unabated. But the Lord did not let his poor servant suffer for very long. He never does, and he always gives me comfort in my tribulations. In this case, he cast a little light to help me see that the spirit of evil is causing all the trouble. I realized that the spirit of evil was using lies to try and scare me away. Once I saw what was going on, I was able to remember my powerful resolution to serve God and my desire to suffer for him. I realized that if I were to act on these lofty intentions, I couldn't get around seeking ways to rest. If trials came my way, I would earn merit by withstanding them. If I experienced unhappiness and offered it up in service to God, it would purify my soul. I had nothing to fear. The greater the opposition, the greater the gain. Why didn't I have the courage to serve the one who had given me so much? With the help of these reflections, I got myself back under control. I vowed before the Blessed Sacrament to do everything in my power to obtain permission to come live in the monastery I had founded. I promised I would commit myself to a strictly cloistered existence as soon as I could do so in good conscience. The moment I made this vow, the spirit of evil fled. I instantly felt calm and happy and have remained that way ever since. All the seclusion and austerities that we practice here have turned out to be extremely easy for me. My joy is so complete that I wonder sometimes what else could possibly bring me so much delight. I am starting to think that this life of radical simplicity is also contributing to the general increase in my health. Maybe the Lord wants to give me this consolation so that I can observe the austerities required of those who live here, since it is necessary and correct for me to do whatever everyone else has to do. Sometimes these things are hard for me, but for the most part, I feel better than I've ever felt in my life. All the people who know about my chronic health problems are amazed by my ability to adhere to these standards. Blessed be the one who gives us all things, and by whose power all things can be undone. This conflict with the spirit of evil left me utterly exhausted, but I chuckled to myself to see that it had all been an illusion. This was the first time in my 28 years of being a nun that I had regretted my monastic vocation even for a moment. I think the Lord allowed this conflict to help me see what a favor he had granted me, and what torment he had saved me from. Also, now I wouldn't be surprised if someone who was unhappy as a nun were to come to me. Instead, I would have compassion for her and know how to console her. After the turmoil had passed and we had eaten dinner, I wanted to get some rest. I had hardly slept all night, and I had been working late or else worrying for many other days. Plus my days were so filled with work that I was almost always tired. By then my superior sent for me to return to the Incarnation immediately. Word of what we had done had spread through the city and created a public outcry. This negative reaction seemed to bear considerable weight with the prioress of the Incarnation. As soon as I reached her orders, I left my nuns, who were very sad to see me go, and returned to the Incarnation. I could tell that I was going to be confronted with many obstacles, but I wasn't too worried because at least our new monastery was now established. I prayed to the Lord to protect me. I prayed to my Father St. Joseph to bring me home to his house very soon. And I offered up to God whatever suffering I might help to have to endure. I was pretty sure they would throw me into a prison cell the moment I arrived at the Incarnation. I was quite happy about the upcoming opportunity to suffer for my beloved and to serve him. Actually, I thought it might be pleasant to be incarnated for a while. I wouldn't have to talk to anyone, and I could get a little solitude with some badly needed rest. I was worn out from having to deal with people so much. And I noticed and the computer did a little pause there, so I'm glad I stopped reading. But if I nod off, maybe wait it out, see if I wake up. I will try to continue. I've got a lot of pages, and all of a sudden it's hit me how tired I am. So I might only read half of this. In fact, maybe that's where I'm going to stop at page 295 on the top of, and we'll pick it up there at the next time. All right. Love you, Mom. Safe travels, and I will talk to you later and read to you later. Bye.